welcome to Storyboard. I'm Shabani Gharat. Mark Sinha, Global Chief Strategy, Data and Innovations Officer, Ours Creative, was visiting India this week. I caught up with him and spoke to him about many things, including how the relationship between advertiser and consumer changed, how should a strategy guy go about planning in this ever-changing world, how is CMO's emphasis on ROI and data changing the way a planner goes about his work, and in the era of fancy designations like creative strategist, does it devalue the function of planning? He answers, listen in. Mark, welcome to CNBC-TV18.
Thank you, welcome, thank you.
I don't get to meet chief strategy officers too often, and since I'm meeting you, this is like a golden opportunity. Tell us straight off the bat, how has the relationship between a consumer and a marketer changed in these times?
Well, in one sense, it hasn't changed at all. I mean, people still love brands. They still want brands in their life. They still need brands to help them, assist them, and to empower them to do new things and to occupy themselves in new and exciting ways. We see that from our most recent study. People are desperate for brands to sort of play a role in enhancing their quality of life. What we think has changed quite significantly is how brands can connect with both the head and the heart of those consumers. That journey has become far, far more complicated. More channels, more segmentation, more fragmentation in terms of the audiences, multiple methods in terms of means. So the choices that I think CMOs now need to make, and brand owners and marketeers, is far, far more complex. I think there is a huge amount of choice, decisions that people need to make now, and they need more and better advice and better data. So in some senses, it hasn't changed at all, but in other senses, it's increasingly more complex. And I think our role as agencies is to try and help and assist our clients to do the right things at the right time. Okay.
I was going through one of your reports released recently, the Meaningful Brand Study. What I found very interesting was the fact that, generally, globally, we've seen how companies and brands are on top of purpose.
Yeah.
Like, all the advertising that is coming out, that's winning awards at these big advertising festivals has some or the other purpose attached to it. But then your report contradicts that. It says that consumers really don't care about purpose. They know that, towards the end of the day, that company or an organization is there to make money. But then if you don't speak about purpose, the kind of advertising that is only specs driven or product driven sounds a bit shallow in today's world. So what, according to you, Mark, is good advertising in today's time?
Well, I think we used to ask very simple questions of brands, right? We wanted the product to be good. We wanted the product to talk about benefits. We wanted to talk about how it's changing our lives. I think in recent times, businesses have started to use brands to talk about more complex and more nuanced subjects, such as social justice, such as their role in the environment, such as sustainability. And whilst all of these are important, they're nuanced subjects. And I think our study has shown that consumers are starting to disconnect the promises that are being made in those purpose statements and the reality that they're living in their lives today. So, for example, a brand through this study would have said, we're trying to improve the environment or trying to improve our sustainability. But the consumer is not experiencing that in their day-to-day living, in their day-to-day lives. That is not a lived experience, that there is any improvement. So this disconnect between the promise and the reality is increasing, okay? So what our study is showing is that consumers are calling that out and saying, you can't say that you're making the world a better place where I'm actually experiencing the opposite. What I need you to do is focus your purpose on me. I need your purpose to be much more personal and much more consumer-centric. So we're starting to see a divergence, I would say, in the role of purpose within an organization. We think there are two types of purpose. We think there is a business purpose, and that business purpose should be about ethical, it should be about sustainability, about the role of the environment, about supply chain, about the sorts of positions it takes in certain social justice issues, inequality, diversity, all those sorts of things. Really significant and important things. And that's a business purpose.
But you're saying that consumers don't care about...
Consumers care that that exists, but they don't want it to be advertised to them. What they want to be talked to and communicated by is the brand purpose. They want their brands to entertain them, to bring them joy, to enhance their lives, to change their lives in some way or shape or form. Consumers want brands to focus on them now, Okay, it's about me. It's
So
about us.
who's doing it well now, if I may ask you?
Well, we've got
Which brand is doing it well?
We've got a couple of examples that have won big at Cannes. Adidas. We did some work with Adidas in the Middle East, which was called a swimmable billboard.
Yes.
Where we really highlighted some of the challenges that are faced by the females and the ladies in that audience, and how we were going to help them sort of confront some of the sort of I guess the positions that they have in society. And we gave them the opportunity to sort of show off them and empower them through the products that Adidas have. Reckitt as well. We have a really strong case from Reckitt, which is about how their product actually helps people on the spectrum to really start to enable them to take their lives forward. So there are lots and lots of cases where purpose is starting to be presented as a personal empowerment, a piece of personal empowering, rather than something that's coming from a business. And I think that's where I think business is starting to think about where the focus should be.
Okay. Mark, let's zoom out a little bit, and if you can share with us the role of strategy in today's times and in today's agency setup, and how has it changed?
Strategy is a very broad church. I mean, strategy used to be sitting either in a research function, sort of learning about the customer, or sitting next to the creatives and trying to interpret what their findings and trying to inspire them. I think now strategy sits across both research and insight. It talks about sort of data-driven analytics. We look at measurement frameworks. We look at AI and the role of AI in markets now. We're starting to really try and understand all the different aspects where strategy can actually play a role. We look at upstream sort of headroom analysis. So what we're seeing is strategy broadening its territory and its reach and its remit for clients, and actually start to really sort of actually tie all of those component parts together. When we started our conversation, we talked about complexity. One of the key roles of strategy is to try and simplify that customer journey and try and really think, in our view, about being more life-shaped so that we can start to sort of bring the right and most appropriate connection points to life in the most meaningful way possible. So that's a really important part of strategy's job, to try and synthesize all of the information that we find and understand and try and put it in a very simple package for consumers to understand.
It was also considered as consumers' voice at the table, so that continues, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's where it starts. The essence of strategy really is always about what is the consumer's perspective on a brand. What we also look at is what we call the meaningful difference. So one of the things that we uniquely look for is the differences between audiences that love your brand and audiences that don't, between segments that engage with you and segments that don't. And what we're trying to find out is why that is happening. What are the dynamics around specific audiences, or specific segments, or specific people, and how we can sort of draw conclusions from that.
Mark, how has brands or CMOs focus on ROI in today's time, especially the times that we live in with economic concerns? How has that focus changed the way in which you approach strategy, and what is your view on, let's say, short-term ticket to long-term impact?
I think you need to play with both. I think long-term investment in brand is there are so many good papers written about the power of long-term brand investment, but long-term brand investment needs tactical activation. So you need to be able to give the audiences that you're priming the ways and means to access your products and services as and when they require them, right? So long-term and short-term operate in the same sphere, in the same strategy. I think that's probably the most important thing to think about. I think when we talk about CMOs, what they're looking for is both effectiveness and efficiency now. So we're trying to help them understand what are and where are the correlations and the attribution from their activities that actually perform down into an ROI. And those can be both causal, as an attribution, or correlative. So they could actually be, we assume that this is happening because of these specific factors or this data that we've unlocked. Those are key component parts. CMOs are also really trying to understand how to drive greater efficiency and effectiveness through the choices around new channels, new activities, and new platforms. How do we test and learn on behalf? How do we move and innovate on behalf of our CMOs? And that, again, becomes a really critical part of the journey and job that we do for them. They really need to understand how do they build that choice architecture for their brand owners, and how do we really start to think about what are the right places to play. That becomes more and more important the more choice you have. Okay? They can't be everywhere. They have a limited budget. So we really need to think and pick the right things for them.
Okay. Probably 10 to 12 years or 15 years prior, there was a clear distinction between suits and ponytails, and planning as a function was somewhere in between. But today is an era where, you get to hear these fancy new designations like creative strategist. So, do you think, Mark, this devalues the function of planning and strategy in an agency setup?
I don't think so. I think I would never deny anyone the opportunity to give themselves a designation that best fits themselves. I think in our head, strategy has a very strong remit across a number of different aspects of our business. In some respects, we would talk about data strategy and data analytics. We would potentially talk about research and give people
But you
focus.
do everything. You just mentioned that you...
100%,
Yes.
yeah. So strategy sort of sits across the entire remit and the entire gamut. So calling out someone as a creative strategist, I think is for some agencies, they would prefer to do that. I think for ourselves...
What does it even mean?
I guess it means that they're focused on the creative ways that you articulate your strategy. But I would anticipate...
But that's what you do.
Precisely. So I would say all strategy is creative at some level. So I think that's almost a hygiene. It's almost a prerequisite of the classification of strategy. We went through a phase of calling everyone digital this and digital that. But I think when digital became everything, then again you fall back to the sort of the more broad titles that I think are much more useful to us.
Coming back to my question on brands obsessed and CMOs obsessed with ROI. So everything in this digital world is all about optimization. So in this era of optimization, Mark, how do you build relevance?
So relevance is built through timeliness, through appropriateness, through an appropriate action and appropriate moment. Personalization, we've become obsessed with personalization, but relevance is really how do I find that moment to be truthful and authentic in front of an audience at that particular moment in time. And it's a combination of those aspects that make you a relevant brand or a relevant product. Some of these things can be culturally relevant as well. One of the things from our study that I think is very useful here is that culture seems to be driving brand engagement way faster today than it ever has. So the ways that brands sort of reflect what's going on in culture is transmitting now into expectations from audiences. So is this brand reflective of the diversity of its audience? Is it reflecting equality in the most appropriate way? Does it allow me to express myself in who I am, in my truthful self? Does it have a position that helps me move my life forward in a way that is meaningful to me? Does it give me purpose? These are really current trends in culture that are driving society, and we're seeing those being adopted by brands and actually driving relevancy. Okay, so a brand can both become really relevant really quickly by tapping into what's going on in culture, but can also fall out of relevance as well by missing those opportunities. So when we talk about relevancy through a sense of personalization, sometimes we can miss the need for it to be culturally relevant and contemporaneous in terms of what is happening in the wider world or the society or culture that you're operating in. And that culture can be regional, it can be global. So you have to think when we're helping our clients and our CMOs, what are the right cultural trends, what are the right cultural themes to tap into that are appropriate for its audience and its brand to occupy.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today.
No problem, thank you.
It is time for a short break. On the other side, we have Mi-Leng Wong, Senior Vice President Global Brands at Mondelez, who's speaking to us about the key trends shaping their marketing, commerce and media strategies. Welcome back. A few weeks ago, Storyboard 18 was in the mecca of advertising and marketing, the Cannes Lion Festival of Creativity, speaking to the who's who of the global industry about the disruptive trends sweeping through the consumer and marketing landscape. Among them was Mi-Leng Wong, Senior Vice President Global Brands at Mondelez, who spoke to us about the key trends shaping the global food majors' marketing, commerce and media strategies. Listen in.
Let me just kick off with asking you, what are some of the top line trends that you have your eye on right now? And some of the insights from that are informing your strategies across your brands?
Right. Well, in today's world, consumers face a number of challenges and tensions that are really relevant for Mondelez. The world is more divided. There is a lot of stress. We feel we're more connected due to virtual connectivity, but people have never been so lonely. There are huge climate concerns, and health and well-being trends are becoming more and more important. So yes, how is this affecting our marketing strategies? Fundamentally, the needs for snacking haven't changed that much. I mean, people still search for a snack to fuel their energy, to treat themselves, you know, to comfort or to share with others during Diwali with Cadbury, or when they come out of school and have an Oreo with their kids. But we do see some changes how consumers approach our category. The perspective on indulgence is changing because it's becoming part of self-care more than just a frivolous treat. People want to treat themselves mentally, emotionally, without feeling the guilt. And this has only been accelerated due to COVID and stresses of economic uncertainty. So at Mondelez, we are challenging ourselves to reimagine the future of snacking through our brands, with an emphasis on innovation, creativity, and commerce. Innovation is important, not just to grow share, but also to grow the category and the pricing power of our brands. Our brands are very well known, as you know, especially Cadbury in India, for creating those positive emotions of joy and pleasure. But at the same time, we see opportunities for innovation to bring new sensorial delight, more mindful indulgence with less guilt, addressing those holistic well-being needs. Creativity is key because 84% of advertising goes unnoticed or is not memorable.
Yes, yes.
I mean, you know this as well, brands compete with life. And sometimes the biggest threat is not another product or service, is, you know, us being invisible. So we encourage our marketeers to come with big ideas that cut through the clutter, that are relevant for consumers.
Right.
And last but not least, commerce, which is going through big change due to the revolution of mobile phones in our hands.
Absolutely.
Because of data and technology, a lot of the marketing experience can now be translated into commerce experiences, reducing the gap between brand building and driving sales. So we are going to integrate commerce in our marketing approach to help consumers get the right snack at the right moments wherever they are.
Influencer marketing has been growing by leaps over the years, and I mean, all over the world, all brands, you know, use influencers. But we've also seen a kind of a bit of a pushback over the recent years, and there has been, of course, some criticism of influencer marketing. There have been situations. There's more scrutiny. And we're talking about regulations in a lot of markets. We've seen it in Europe, of course, and back in India as well. What is your sense of the influencer marketing ecosystem right now? And when you work with influencers, what are some of the things that you have to be mindful of, especially now? Has that changed over the past few years?
Brands that are winning tap successfully into modern pop culture, and influencer marketing is definitely a key part of our brand building to keep our brands modern, topical, and also to surprise and excite our fan base. A great example is probably Oreo. Oreo's purpose is to connect the world through playfulness, and we've had very successful partnerships with Lady Gaga, where we had a pink Oreo. But also, I would say, IP influencers like Batman or Xbox. The latest one is Blackpink, a partnership with Blackpink in Southeast Asia, where this limited edition Oreo created unprecedented access to the artist. You know, they got, you know, consumers got exclusive content, personalized messaging, and a chance to meet and greet. So finding the right influencer is a little bit like finding the right partner, I guess. You need to share similar interests, and most critically, you need to align on values. If you only select an influencer because that influencer is trendy,
or
you know,
yeah.
or if it serves a specific marketing task, it's risky because, you know, you can harm brand equity, ultimately your business. So aligning on values is critical.
At Cannes, of course, artificial intelligence. Give me a sense of what you make of it in terms of deploying artificial intelligence in your marketing strategies, in building brands, which eventually sort of impact business as well.
In fact, I think anyone who says that they know what the real impact of AI will be is lying. There are so many polarizing opinions right now in the industry, right? From it's going to destroy humanity to the saving humanity.
Jobs as well,
I mean,
yeah.
Definitely. We don't know yet what the real impact will be, but we can make some very informed guesses. The ad and tech industry is talking a lot about the efficiency opportunity. Media teams have been transformed with AI, you know, optimizing their targeting. So data analysts are using it already for research. So it's been around for a while. But what's really new is generative AI. And despite the efficiency opportunity, I'm genuinely excited about the creative opportunity that Gen AI can bring us. Whether it is creating Nike stores in Mars, or how would a collaboration between Louis Vuitton and Toblerone look like? We might be going to concerts where songs are being born from prompts. So it's generative AI brings a new dimension of ideas, which I think is inspired by this remix of cultures.
Thank you so much for your time, Mei Ling. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
It is time for a short break. On the other side, key findings from the 11th edition of the annual Brand Footprint India report. Welcome back. Kantar has released the 11th edition of its annual Brand Footprint India report this week. The report ranks the most chosen in-home and out-of-home FMCG brands based on consumer reach points or CRPs. To give you a perspective, CRP considers the actual purchase made by consumers and the frequency at which these purchases are made in a calendar year. Now, this year's report splits the most chosen brands across in-home and the newly launched out-of-home list for the first time. Let's take a look at some of the key findings from the in-home segment. First up, Parle holds the top spot for a record 11th year in a row, followed by Britannia, Amul, Clinic Plus and Tata Consumer Products. 4 new brands, Balaji, Lux, Sunsilk, Nirma, joined the Billion CRP Club in 2022. Over the last 5 years, the number of brands in the Billion CRP Club has only increased from 16 to 28. Beverages, in fact, is the fastest growing category this year. Moving on, if you look at the OOH segment, Britannia leads the way in the inaugural OOH brand rankings. It is followed by Haldiram's, Cadbury's, Balaji and Parle. Interestingly, top 5 are all snacking brands, and then 5 most chosen OOH beverage brands in India are Fruity, Thumbs Up, Amul, Maaza and Sprite. K. Ramakrishnan, Managing Director, South Asia, World Panel Division and Kantar tells us more.
Brand footprint is based on a metric called consumer reach points. Now, consumer reach points is purely a function of the number of times the consumer has reached for or chosen a particular brand over others. So it's basically a product of 3 things. One is the population of the country. Second is the penetration of the particular brand. By penetration, I mean if there are 100 people, how many of them actually bought that brand in the year? So population into penetration into the number of times that they chose the brand, right? So it's a product of penetration, frequency, and the population. So that gives you something called as CRP. And we rank brands based on CRP. Higher the CRP, the better. Brands which work strongly on penetration or brands which are brands or categories which are very high on frequency, these are the ones who tend to win as far as the brand footprint is concerned. And penetration is an effort which is globally acclaimed as the right metric that predicts growth of a given brand. I mean, there have been lots of studies done on what drives growth best. Is it frequency? Is it penetration? Any of those. And it's been clearly established empirically and with data across several markets, several years, that penetration is probably the best predictor of growth. So therefore, if you see most leading organizations in FMCG, they will definitely have penetration as a metric for their, including their topmost management. So brands which work on penetration, brands which work on frequency, these are the ones that tend to win in the brand footprint ranking.
Now for some exciting news from us. Storyboard 18 is launching the Brand Blitz Quiz, India's first panel business quiz. Now, if you love brands and how they work, if you are an ad geek or just someone who loves trivia and listening to unheard stories, Brand Blitz Quiz is for you. The quiz is open to corporates and college students from all over India. Brand Blitz Quiz begins on August 20th with the national prelims. This will be followed by 4 regional finals and then the national finale, all live streamed on CNBC-TV18's YouTube channel. To register, log on to Storyboard 18 Brand Blitz Quiz page. Brand Blitz Quiz is brought to you by our title sponsor Cadbury Dairy Milk and AGO as a lifestyle partner.
Are you a advertising genius? If yes, it's time to put your skills to the test. Register to participate in India's most exciting marketing and advertising quiz contest. Cadbury Dairy Milk presents Storyboard 18 Brand Blitz Quiz.
With that, it's a wrap on Storyboard this week. You can catch all of our content on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Thanks for watching. We will be back same time next week. See you soon.